Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. Allah Satnam.
Welcome to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Currie is my name. And today we're speaking with Lindsay McKenzie, who's the co-founder of Betel, Australia. As you'll be familiar with these programs, we have two interviews. The first is to establish the spiritual background, and in this case of Lindsay, and then in the second interview to see the way in which that is translated into action in the world. And Betel, Australia is the action part of it. So first, to explore Lindsay's spiritual roots. Lindsay, how did it start? From a child, what was your spiritual founding?
Well, I grew up in a home where we went to church each Sunday, but it was more than just a cultural thing. It was my parents were practicing, and that amazed me because I realised that other kids at school, their parents were different.
Yes.
But it didn't really change anything. But I followed through with that going to church lifestyle. Went to high school, and I think a crunch came when I didn't get through what was matriculation in those days.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, wow, life does change. And there are choices in this. And I thought, wow, this is like the first time that of realising that I had to take my life, take charge of it.
Yes.
And the decisions I made had consequences. Yeah.
And so did that challenge your faith? Was that or was that built into your faith?
It did really, because I thought, well, this is not fantasy world anymore. It's not sort of magic. This is not magic wand kind of thing. You know, you can pray, but there are other factors that you know. It's not God is not a big Santa Claus up there. He's just going to benignly grant all your requests. There's responsibility in that too. Yeah.
That's so. That about what age would have it been that you discovered that at matriculation age? Was that?
Well, that was a big blow to me. Yeah. And Mum, being a very practical person, said, "Well, if you don't get through matric, you're going out to work." The thing was, although my brother and my sister knew exactly what they wanted to be when they left school. My brother a mechanic, my sister wanted to be a secretary, and they've done that, and they still are in different ways. It's developed, but. And I thought, people asked me, I said, I don't know what I want to do. I've got no idea. And Mum then said, well, she took things into, if you like, into her own hands. But she said, you come with me, I'm going to do some job interviews. And I'm thinking, horrors, what's that all about,
Yes.
So we did. Anyway, the end of that was I joined Kmart in those days as a trainee store manager. Kmart was only fairly new. I started off at East Burwood, and then because it was so new, we were being pushed up through the ranks fairly quickly. But then that produced its own stress. I thought, wow, what is this all about? Am I going to be a corporate person the rest of my life? Is that what, and I thought, is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? I mean, it might have been a good thing for some people, but I thought, I don't know whether that's what I want to do. But I didn't know what I did want to do.
No.
I didn't know. I thought, well, hang on, where's faith? I'm praying, but God's not answering. And I went through a time where it was quite black, and I thought, maybe all this doesn't really work, and everybody knows it, but they're just going along with this cover-up.
The practice.
I thought, this is a cover, because it really doesn't work, but no one's really want to tell you it doesn't work. And it was a dark time. I thought, well, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it. But in the middle of that, I can't tell you what, when exactly, but there was just a gradual understanding that the God was real. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. It was just like he broke through that darkness. I say he because there was a personality. It wasn't just me being ignorant, getting more information. It was like, there's someone out there who really wants me on their team, and it's God, and he doesn't care that I've messed it up.
That's very interesting. So it was a sort of a just an awareness.
Yeah. And probably when I look at it, it was everything that I'd been taught, sort of the pieces coming together, but it was like the light was sort of on those pieces, whereas before it was like, yeah, okay, that's interesting, but it doesn't. It was like, this is real, and it's real personally for you, Lindsay, right now, if you want it.
And how old were you then, do you think?
22.
22.
I can remember almost, it was February 1979, I was 22.
And so what happened then? You were still at Kmart when that happened?
And I figured, that's good. I understand more than I did, so I'm going to really translate that into my work. But it was like, all of a sudden, from that, it was like something had happened. I would go to work, but there was no excitement about it anymore. That bothered me. I thought, gee, this began to show. And, the boss would say, oh, something's happened. You're not really, you're not on the ball. I'm thinking, I'm trying hard, I really am. And it was like, there was something happening inside of me, and I didn't know what it was, but looking back, it was like I was being drawn from one lifestyle, if you like, into another, but I didn't know the full picture. Right. It was like one door was closing and another door yet to be defined was opening. And there was this time of limbo. And I resigned from the job because I just couldn't do it anymore. And it's not fair, I thought, to keep plugging away at this. And I took time out. I was like, I did nothing really in a very work sense for 3 months.
Okay. And so that was and we are heading up to a break, so this is an opportune moment. So there was this transformation in your perspective of life. Would that be a reasonable description?
Yes.
So
and my understanding of the Christian message.
Right.
I think that was it. I understood it. I understood what Jesus was on about. Before I learned it was all rote. It was up here. I'd even taught it to others.
Good. Thanks, Lindsay. We'll go to a break. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Lindsay McKenzie, who's the co-founder of Betel, Australia. And Lindsay's in the process of describing his spiritual roots. Lindsay, you got to the point where it seemed as though there was a God incident, if you like, of an illumination.
Yep.
And you were about 22 years old. What happened from there?
Well, I think, just to put a word to it, I began to understand the word faith, what it meant, as far as, before it was like the Christian faith or the Muslim faith, or like, it was like synonymous with religion, but instead of using the word religion, used faith. But I understood, or began, I'm still trying to understand what it means when Paul, the apostle, talks about faith is the substance of things unseen or things hoped for, but the guarantee of something that you cannot touch. And I still realizing, that there's that connection there with God through Jesus, if you want to put it that way. There's faith becomes something you do, you receive, you understand, and you take a step into the unknown, although it's not completely unknown, but a lot of it's unknown. So obeying a command, if you like, or an instruction, even though you don't quite fully understand what's going on here, full of doubt the whole time, but taking those steps anyway. And I believe that I do believe that doubt is a friend of faith. because you're doubting, but you're moving out anyway. And so I'm saying that because in this the 3-month period, I thought, what do I do from now? What's my life? I know God's here. I know He's guiding me. I know He will guide me. I don't know how He's going to do it. And then when it started to happen, I think, yeah, but I want to control this more than I'm doing. But it was like control was not part of the picture. It was obedience without control. But there was trust in there. It was safe, even if it didn't seem logical. It was safe. And so I began to think, well, okay, I'm going to try just different things. Someone said, why don't you learn more about this faith? Why don't you go to a Bible college? Or I thought, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of that. So I signed up. I was living in Tasmania at the time, in Launceston, and there was a Bible college. It was a 24/7 residential. I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. So I signed up. I only to realise that it had a particular emphasis. It was a missionary training college.
Oh, okay.
I didn't understand what that meant at the time. But I thought, well, they teach the Bible, that's all. I'm interested. But another thing I liked about it wasn't one particular church that was running this show. It was an inter-church, if you like, board, mission that was. I liked that. I think in all this, well, it doesn't really matter what label you put on it. It's going back to those very things that Jesus said and putting them into practice. So, long story short, as I went to that missionary training college, I saw the world was bigger than what I imagined, and as a process, I guess, of elimination, I realised that my life was going to take a turn, but it wasn't going to be here in Australia. But I didn't know where. It was eventually narrowed down to Spain, and so I made all preparations to go to Spain. Having said that, my mother, who was my teacher, and particularly, and Dad too, they thought, Horace, no. You don't have to sort of. They taught me these things, but now when I began to run with them, they sort of think, wow, my goodness, we hadn't counted that. But then they became my best supporters.
Yes.
But that was their initial reaction. And
Well, it would be, because where Spain drops out of
the
sky.
Exact opposite on a world globe. I think Wellington, New Zealand, is the exact point that if you drill through Madrid, you get to Wellington. Or just off the coast. So like it was the other end of the world. Where's Spain? Let's look at it on a map.
And so did you have anything idea in your mind as to what you might do in Spain?
Not really. Just I met someone who was actually working there, and they said, look, come to Spain. Spain is really going through a whole social change. Upheaval would probably be the better word to use. Just come out of a 40-year dictatorship under General Franco, where it was a very watertight kind of. That came out of the Civil War, and it was a society that had a complete rejection of religion, having been under a right-wing dictatorship. And so it was a mission. So I found myself there with not just other people from other different church backgrounds, but cultural backgrounds. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And I thought, everyone thought like Australians, don't they? And I had to realise that, part of the issue is that me adapting to Spain and learning Spanish and learning the culture. Another part of me had to learn to adapt to different ways of looking at life and faith through other cultures, languages, European, American, New Zealand.
Right. So this was a really a powerful grounding for this little Australian boy who sort of landed. It sounds to me. Yeah.
Somewhat, yes.
Yes. But Madrid had a big influence. There was something that happened there. Tell us about that.
Okay, yeah. We were there. I met another one of the other cross-cultural workers called Elliot Tepper from the States. And we clicked and we decided that we could work together with the idea of making making Christianity something real to a people that had thought they'd had it, but really just received a very cultural version of it under a dictatorship where it became a forced thing. So we thought, how do you engage with people, normal people in the street, to bring the reality of what Jesus was talking about? We're not talking about religion, just the reality of a Christian lifestyle.
Thanks, Lindsay. Join us again after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and today we're speaking with Lindsay McKenzie, who's the co-founder of Betel, Australia. And Lindsay's describing how he's in Madrid with a fellow Christian, and they're saying, what can we do in Madrid to grow something Christian? What did you do, Lindsay?
Well, of course, we're talking about growing something Christian in a country that is understood to be Christian. And that wasn't what motivated us to go there, was to see the reality of that on the ground. And it wasn't happening. Spain, after a dictatorship, the average Spaniard just wanted to be a Europe like the rest of Europe, having lots of material things, and all of a sudden all these things, even when I was there, just electrical things started flooding in, and people said, oh, let's go after that. And it was really hard trying to get people really interested in genuine spirituality. But there was a group that had all the time in the world for us. It wasn't the people we would have chosen, it was the local heroin addicts. And we thought, no, that's not the profile of the people that we planned on working with, and certainly wasn't my experience, life experience. I mean, drugs, even cigarette smoking, and drinking alcohol was just so foreign to me. And I thought, wow, these really can be, people say keep the main thing the main thing. Well, the main thing for us was reaching the average Spaniard with the good news of Jesus in a country that had just been blown apart by all sorts of divisions and etc. But day after day, the people that kept coming up to us when they'd see us just walking by were the local addicts. And at first it was like we were a soft touch, and they could give us spin a bit of a yarn and get some money from us. That was their motive. And we were a soft touch, and they did get money off us until after a while we realised this is not really helping them, So we began to build up just friendships with them, and after a while we said, well, we can help you, but it's not money. What you really need is just to get dry, go to a rehab centre. We can find you one that's free of charge, and we'll go from there. If you're willing, our part is we'll take you up, and we'll leave you there, and you don't have to stay if you don't want to, but we'll take you up. And so we began these sort of journeys, 4 hours drive up to the Basque Country, which is this small rehab centre that was there, with a very sincere man who just opened up his farmhouse, really. But he was willing to take them on and work with them. So that was the limit, we thought, of our involvement with these drug addicts, until one day, just walking, I was on my own, a very ordinary day, nothing spectacular, just doing a very normal thing like going shopping for food, and I was living in an apartment by myself. Then I wasn't married at the time, and this guy called Raoul came up to me running, sweating, just out of breath, and he said, "You Lindsay, you got to help me. I'm glad to see you. You got to help me." And because help in those days meant trying to arrange for him to go to a rehab centre. And I said, "Well, we can do something on Monday." He said, "Yeah, but you don't understand. You don't understand. I've got a court order. I can't leave Madrid until this court case comes up in 2 weeks' time. But I really need help right now." And I don't know why. I still don't know what made me do it. But I just opened my mouth and I heard myself say to Raoul, "Why don't you come to my house for those 2 weeks?" And as soon as I said it, I thought, "What did you just say, you idiot?" And he kind of jumped. He said, "Oh, that would be great. Yes." I thought, "No." We're supposed to, this is not. And I'm thinking, how can I get out of this? And I thought, "Oh, maybe if I put in a condition that he cannot possibly fulfill, that he will, I'll get out of this honourably, but I've put my foot in it badly, and this is not looking good. So I said to him, look, yeah, but, because I knew that drug addicts were anything but punctual, I said, you've got to be at my house at 9 o'clock the next morning, or the whole deal's off, thinking, I'll get out of that, foot and mouth disease on steroids. Anyway, the next day at 9 a.m. on the dot, there was Raoul with his bag and the door, and I didn't know what to do. So I said, well, come in. And I just started thinking, well, what sort of rules are we going to have? We're going to have some rules here. So I said, blurting out like, well, if you can't go anywhere on your own. If I go anywhere, you got to come with me. And if you go anywhere with approval, I'll go with you. And they were kind of the only rules we had. And so he went through withdrawal in my house, and in that time there was a spiritual thing going on in his life which I wasn't aware of. And he said, you're talking about Jesus all the time, but not sure that I'm ready for that, because I know that from what you're saying, when you receive Jesus' message, it's an all or nothing thing, isn't it? I said, well, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's a pretty good understanding of it. He said, well, it's not for me. I said, well, it's okay. We're just doing, I don't know what we're doing, rehab or something. But anyway, it's only for 2 weeks, so we'll see what happens. So after those 2 weeks, something really did happen that changed. He had his, and I don't know exactly what point it happened. I just knew that he had an encounter that was spiritual, that was beyond himself. And he said, one night he said to me, I realised Jesus is real, there's a connection. He kept saying this word, there's a connection, there's a God connection, in his own sort of rough way. And he began to ask a lot of questions. He wanted a Bible. He said, I want to read this for myself. But I've seen it, the reality of what I'm reading here, I've seen it in you guys. You're not perfect, you make mistakes. He said, but there's something real here, and I want it for myself.
Isn't that's a real transformation, isn't it? And so Raoul was sort of the catalyst for something which grew to be much bigger.
Yeah, but we did not know that.
No.
Certainly at the time. I wasn't part of the planning at all. In fact, I'm still focused on this 2-week period that I agreed to. But there was a bonding going on between he and myself. There was a brotherhood thing there. And we became friends.
Yeah. Well, it's on the basis of that friendship. We'll need to finish for now. And you're happy to be interviewed again in relation to Betel on the larger scale?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu